The Biden administration has made clear that it is deeply committed to bringing about this ceasefire. And so they're very invested in that outcome and are bringing that optimism to the table to try to cajole the parties along. I think every time they think they get closer or they find a resolution on one issue, another issue comes up. Eventually, there's going to be a ceasefire. Without a doubt. The question really is one of timing. One negotiator described the process at this moment as artificial respiration. I think that's a little negative, but reflects how negotiators are feeling, that they're breathing and chugging along here, but that it's not achieving the breakthrough that they had hoped for at this stage.
So if you do operate under this assumption that eventually there will be a ceasefire, it is just a question of when, what would your bet be on when at this time, Carmiel? Because the longer this draws on, the closer we get to an election here in the U.S. and a new player potentially coming in who could completely change the game, theoretically, at least the policy position of the U.S. and the way in which they're trying to exercise leverage in all of this. Is this something that realistically can happen before November?
I think it's certainly possible for it to happen by November, but there are significant factors that are pulling both parties away from achieving an agreement. You have, on the one hand, Netanyahu, who sees the prospect of a Trump administration as a positive outcome for him, who might want to take that gamble as he thinks through negotiations and what types of concessions he might have to make. On the other hand, you have Sinwar, who sees the prospect of a regional war as strengthening his hand. And so you have two leaders who have really conflicting political interests, whose negotiators who are working for them keep coming closer and closer to an agreement, and yet the leaders themselves keep pulling back. So I think it is certainly in the realm of possibility. What we're hearing is that they keep getting closer. The two main sticking points right now are over Israel's continued military presence in Gaza, which is key for Netanyahu and something that Hamas and Egypt really are opposed to. But we continue to see forward momentum on questions like the identity and number of hostages that will be released, or the identity and number of Palestinian prisoners that will be released. So we see them getting very close. It's possible, but the timeline really is a big question.
Well, and to ask you a different version of the question I just asked Ian, to what extent do you feel that these conversations, as close as they may be getting, or the ebbs and flows, or what is actually preventing the retaliation that's been expected by Iran and Hezbollah for well over a month now in reaction to the assassinations of a Hezbollah and Hamas leader back in July in quick succession? We obviously saw Israel trying to thwart an attempt by Hezbollah, they say, over this past weekend, but I can't imagine that was really it, Carmiel. How does the action of Hezbollah and Iran moving forward have a through line to what's happening with Hamas and Israel and the mediators at the table?
Yeah, so the regional conflict has been heating up slowly and continually. So what we saw over the weekend was kind of a moderated escalation where there was a significant strike by Israel, but yet limited in range. It really focused on the border areas. And similarly, an attack by Hezbollah that was larger than what we've seen in the past. At the same time, we haven't seen either country push forward into a full-blown war. The U.S. and regional allies are really committed to keeping the temperature low, to moving forward with the ceasefire. Israel has significant constraints as it deals with a multi-front war. It is in the interest of everyone to try to keep this quiet. That being said, it's not going to go away. This isn't going to just resolve itself on its own. I think what we're going to continue to see is this kind of quiet staging of escalation over time that we're already in, but not necessarily a full boil all at once.